Section 6. Contract deadlines, timeframes, and performance. The contract is signed. Now the clock starts. When we left David's Queen Creek transaction, his designated broker Michael had discovered something concerning. David's financial picture was not nearly as strong as everyone originally believed. Between his first mortgage, another lien, missed payments, selling expenses, and other costs, the equity David expected to receive at closing was disappearing quickly. Michael had finally said the words Ashley was hoping she would not hear. We may be looking at a short sale. Ashley immediately starts thinking about lenders, payoff statements, liens, and what David may need to do next. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel is talking with Marcus and Elena about their inspection. This is where an experienced agent recognizes an important contract law reality. David's financial problems have not caused the purchase contract to stop moving. The clock is still running. A contract is a schedule of promises. Students sometimes think of a purchase contract primarily as an agreement about price. Marcus and Elena will pay $518,000 and David will sell them the house. But look deeper. A real estate purchase contract is also a schedule of obligations. Things must happen, documents must be delivered, investigations must occur, and parties must perform within contractual time periods. Earnest money may need to be delivered. Due diligence must occur. Financing requirements must be addressed. Title matters need to be reviewed. Agreed repairs may need to be completed. Closing documents must be handled. Eventually, the transaction must reach close of escrow according to the parties' agreement. This is why a good agent doesn't simply ask, "What's the closing date?" A good agent asks, "What happens between today and the closing date?" Then Daniel notices a problem. Daniel opens his transaction management system and realizes Marcus and Elena's inspection period is moving quickly. Marcus has been busy at work and has not scheduled one of the additional inspections he wanted. "Can't we just do it next week?" Marcus asks. Daniel responds, "Let's look at what your contract actually says." That sentence may save the transaction. Here's where many agents get into trouble. They remember what happened in their last transaction and assume the same deadline applies to this one. Never manage a contract from memory. Manage the contract from the contract. The agreement in front of you controls the parties' obligations. Different forms, addenda, counteroffers, and negotiated provisions can change deadlines and procedures. Deadlines are more than calendar entries. Imagine the contract requires something to occur within a specified number of days. When does that period begin? Are calendar days used? What happens if the deadline lands on a particular day? How must notice be delivered? Those questions may be answered by the contract itself. This is why experienced brokers teach agents to review the definitions and time calculation provisions of the form being used. Don't invent your own method because that's how I've always counted it. A single incorrectly calculated date can affect inspections, notices, financing obligations, cancellation rights, or other contractual protections. Use systems, not memory. Ashley has been in real estate long enough to know she cannot keep every deadline in her head. When David's contract was accepted, she entered important dates into her transaction management system. She also created calendar reminders before the major deadlines. Now that David's financial situation is deteriorating, those systems become even more valuable. Imagine Ashley spends 3 days talking with David and his lender and completely forgets about a contractual obligation due Friday. David's financial hardship does not necessarily excuse the missed contractual deadline. This is why experienced brokers build redundancy into transaction management. The transaction platform tracks the date. The calendar tracks the date. The agent communicates important deadlines to the client. Critical issues are documented in the file. The goal is not simply to remember the deadline. The goal is to avoid being surprised by it. Does missing a deadline automatically kill the contract? Now suppose one party fails to perform an obligation when required. Is the contract automatically over at midnight? Don't assume that. The consequences of missed performance depend on the contract language, the obligation involved, and the surrounding circumstances. Some contracts contain notice and cure procedures that must be followed before certain remedies become available. This distinction is critical. Agents sometimes say, "They missed the deadline, so we're out." That statement can be dangerous if the contract requires another step. An Arizona licensee should identify the missed obligation, review the applicable contract provisions, immediately communicate with the client, involve the broker when appropriate, and follow the contractual procedure rather than improvising a remedy. Now there are 2 clocks. Michael calls Ashley later that afternoon. "I spoke with David. He's now behind on his mortgage, and he's received another notice from the loan servicer." Ashley asks the question that matters. "Do we have a foreclosure date?" "Not yet," Michael says, "but that's exactly what we need to watch." For the first time, Ashley realizes where this transaction may be heading. If David's situation continues to deteriorate, she may eventually have 2 clocks running at the same time. One clock is the purchase contract. inspections, financing, title, performance, and close of escrow. The other could become the foreclosure process, notices, statutory deadlines, reinstatement issues, and potentially a trustee's sale. Those two timelines do not automatically coordinate with each other. A purchase contract doesn't simply tell a lender, stop everything, we have a buyer. That lesson will become extremely important later in this course. For now, Marcus and Elena still have time to complete their investigations. And that brings us to another critical contract concept. Sometimes a contract gives a party the right to move forward only if certain conditions are satisfied. We call those contingencies. In Section 6, we'll look at the contractual protections that can give buyers and sellers options when inspections, financing, appraisal, title, or other important parts of the transaction don't go as planned. Online discussion 1. David's financial situation is deteriorating. Does that automatically suspend the deadlines in his existing purchase contract? Answer: no. A seller's financial hardship does not automatically suspend contractual deadlines. The parties must continue to pay attention to the obligations and time periods contained in their agreement, unless the contract is properly modified or another contractual or legal provision applies. Ashley should continue managing the purchase contract while separately addressing David's financial circumstances. 2. Marcus tells Daniel that he wants to complete an inspection after the applicable contractual period because he has been busy. What should Daniel do? Answer: Daniel should review the actual contract and applicable addenda with Marcus, rather than assuming additional time exists. He should explain the relevant contractual deadline and available options within his professional role. If an extension is desired, it may require agreement from the other party. Daniel should not promise Marcus that a deadline can simply be ignored. 3. Why should agents use transaction management systems and calendar reminders instead of relying on memory? Answer: real estate contracts can contain numerous deadlines involving different parties and obligations. Missing one can affect a client's contractual rights or create a dispute. Using multiple tracking systems, advanced reminders, written client communication, and transaction checklists helps agents manage deadlines consistently and creates a better record of the transaction.